I don't know if this will be particularly interesting to people or not. I've always assumed that it really wouldn't be, so that's why I've never really just done this before. But I'm just going to film my process. I'll talk a little bit when there's some sort of a technique or a sort of idea or trick that might be of interest, but it's not going to be a step-by-step or anything. There'll be very long sections of not talking. But if you're just interested in watching my process in real time, it might be relaxing if nothing else. So, let me know if this is interesting, and if it's not, that's okay, because I just do this anyway. This is just my life. So, I'm starting an intuitive painting here, and I personally have this weird nervousness around making things symmetrical. I don't know, it's uncomfortable to me artistically. So because of that, because it's out of my comfort zone, I'm intentionally starting off this piece as if I smooshed it together to try to force myself to play and, work with my art style in a different way so I don't fall into kind of automatic habits. And I'm also just using my fingers. I really enjoy that at this part because you'll see how the colors mix together in these interesting color gradations. So as long as you pick two colors that are close-ish to each other on the color wheel, you can mix them and you won't get any sort of kind of mucky, boring, beige color out of them. When I'm first starting, I often put paint directly onto the canvas. It's just easier than bothering to put it one place and then move it because I know I'm going to be using all of it anyway. And also with a larger canvas like this one is 18 by 18, because I'm working in one section, it gives other sections time to dry so that by the time I'm ready to work a new space on the canvas, it's already dry. So there's less waiting time between layers. I can make this easier for myself. So let's do that. This would also be called a wet on wet technique, where I'm using wet paint on wet paint, as opposed to when it dries and then it's wet on dry, I guess. It's those real things. I feel like I'm making that up now, and that's not real. I think the lack of social interaction has decreased my ability to just speak clearly. So this is really fun as well, I can just pick up paint from other parts of my canvas and then move them to where I'm working. And then since there is that hint of green here, it pulls that green into there. So it just gives you a lot of really, really fun color shifts that I think can make it look more intentional, or like if you don't feel like you're very good at painting, you can totally fake it like this. I mean, it's not faking it. You're fine. You're making art, whatever you do. So you don't need anybody's approval to make art, but if you wanted to feel like, you were nailing it, you could do this and you're totally gonna look like you nail it. And I'm just using the flat side of my thumb there. And it's fun too, as you kind of move in one direction, sometimes excess paint will build up and give you those really clean lines. And you can work with those in interesting ways too. So. And to the truest extent of the word, right now all I'm doing is playing. I have no intention of what this will look like. I don't even know what I'm going to start working on after I do whatever I'm doing right here, other than that I'll mirror it. But really I'm just enjoying painting and letting it just be whatever it will be. Because especially these first layers, so much of them gets covered up anyway, that there's no need to stress about it or overthink what I'm doing. I can just let it very naturally be whatever it unfolds to be. So when you have a big kind of glob like that, that really allows you to go in here and kind of make layers with, that's not a very strong contrast between those two, so it's kind of hard to see what I'm talking about. So I'll explain it better later. There we go. So when I pull the white into the other colors and bring it back, all of that just occurs by just, rubbing the paint in up here and then bringing it down. Rubbing the paint up a bunch, and this is what it'll look like. I slid it up, and this, and then down. And you have these interesting little kind of, I don't know, grass or lines or, whatever. This one is almost empty, so I'm pouring it right on the canvas. Normally, I wouldn't necessarily open the lid like that, because then you really do lose control of the amount when you take the whole lid off. So this is a damp brush. Oh, that's what it is. It's the brush being dry or wet. There it is. And all I'm doing is just continuing to make larger concentric circles around this. And because there's the darker color already on the canvas here, and there's already lighter colors on the outside, if you just start and continue to work outward, that will stay pretty clean. and your outside will kind of pick up and move around that lighter color, and that automatically gives you a sense of depth. So that's kind of another easy way to work in shading without having to really think too much about shading. So this one is basically out. So it gets me those little circles as well as just a lot of paint on the canvas, or at least eventually I will move into making this asymmetrical. Eventually something will just kind of continue to sort of take on a mind of its own, and I'll just follow that where it goes. Ooh, too many paints. But eventually, it just starts to kind of go on its own. So anytime, let's use this one. So if you put down a thick amount like that, and then just kind of gently press it down, like I'm not even fully smooshing it to the canvas yet. And then, okay, so one thing you can do with something like this is build on it. So now I'm pressing all the way to the canvas. And if I want to take more of that color in, I just have to lift up a little bit and bring more in. And then here, again. If you want, you can sneak in a little more color. Bring it up here. And it's just building out thinner layers of that paint. But because you're bringing a lighter color onto a darker color like that, it's just going to inevitably give you a bit of a blend, because you're literally just mixing the paint on the canvas. But it can give you some really nice, again, kind of gradients if you want to play with the sense of space. Ooh, that looks like an eye now. Sounds kind of fun. Let's work with that. And that's how it works. Just eventually something kind of looks like something. And you can choose to play with that and work with it, or you can continue just playing and doing whatever feels right. And eventually I'm going to keep playing over this anyway, because I'm not particularly like attached to this. Like, it's just a part of my process. Neat to look at, but I don't have to, you know, worry about saving it or anything. Life lessons in art. So because these are so thick, they take longer to dry. But that also means I can bring in, oh, this one's also very, very nearly dead. So, woo! Also has a ball in it to help shake it around. All right, and then if we add some water, and those will kind of bleed around. And you can always help that along if you want. You can add, you can add water to certain places. I always love this part. I think it's so fun. I'm not going to do it now because it'd be very loud. But if you are working, you can tap it on your table and that'll help force some of it down as well. It's just very loud and disruptive if you're filming. So now with that, because it was still wet underneath and the fluid paint is so watery, it allows you to play on top of the previous colors in a new way. And you can I'm just rubbing, like pressing down all the way onto the canvas, and then that gives you these little ridges. And honestly, sometimes I just like watching how the color changes, so I just keep doing it. Like, I think painting has been a highly meditative process for me for years without me even realizing that that's the purpose it was serving in my life. And I think especially this kind of painting anyone can do, and it's gonna look good. Like, you know, it might be abstract, it might not be what you like, but it's gonna be good aesthetically. Like, you can't mess it up. So, you know, you may not like it, but, you know, by the art standards, it works. It's a painting. You made it. Good job. I don't know. It's very fun to realize you can't get it wrong. It's something very freeing in that. And as long as you're enjoying the process of creating it, the process is the point. It's about the journey, not the destination. And if you end up getting to a wonderful destination at the end of your painting, yay, you did it. So I like to always cover the full thing before I really like move on to any kind of fine work detail. mainly because it gives that initial layer a chance to dry some more. You might hear my neighbor dog, and that's okay because she's adorable and she's allowed to bark at stuff. It's her living her best life. So she'll stop soon, and I'm sorry if it bothers you, because she's a good girl and she gets to do her thing. So this is a much bigger example of that, just getting it wet and then letting the paint just go where it goes. So recently I've been, trying to make myself use different color palettes, because if you know my work at all, I tend to end up with a lot of teals and green, magenta, and those are pretty, but it gets it makes all my work look the same. And so, you know, like in life, you're supposed to try new things and new experiences. My water is very dirty right now, so that means you can also do fun things like this. If you want to just add a hint of color places, you can use your water to do that. I got excited to tell you that, and now I forgot what I was saying. So I'm forcing myself to work with new colors, which means things like orange, which is not a color I am particularly drawn to. It's nothing against orange. It's certainly not a value judgment. And anyone is allowed to like orange. It's just not really for me. But I think I can make it work in my work, and it's good for me to do things that are uncomfortable. So, welcome to the party, orange. And with things like this, again, I'm building up so much paint over here that I can just pick it up on my brush and bring it over to somewhere else. And for example, like here, if that blue hadn't been dry already, I wouldn't have put this down because I wanted it to stay kind of clean like that. So that's the difference of putting something wet. So like this was all wet and had the yellow, so I have all of these different colors in here. You'll notice here it's very clean. It's all the same, you know, the same pink. So that's what's going to give you that difference. I don't know if that's still a little bit. But because this is just a hint, kind of sticky, that's where it is in its dryness. Not a very complimentary term, I suppose. When I'm doing this, I'm just globbing water on. It's fun. It can just give you some subtle range of color in there based on where the lines and stuff are of the brush stroke. Of the brush strokes. I'm just not used to talking. So all of this, yeah, so this is just, again, a little bit sticky dry. And so if I bring in a bit of that cream color, it'll still blend with it. So notice I didn't get just pure cream. If this were dry and I put the cream on it, it would be solid. So that's how you just kind of can figure out a little bit of what to expect as far as the reaction of what your paint will do and how your paint will, you know, react in different situations. All right. This is kind of fun just here. I think I might call it a day on this one for a little bit and then maybe revisit it once all of this is dry. But if you wanted, I think, and this, if you had created this and this was your first layer and you were like, hey, this is awesome, I'm just gonna leave it here. You do that. Follow your heart. If you're at like about this stage and you hate it, you're like, this is awful, I don't like it, I want to just paint it clean, don't do that, don't do that. Because we can cover all of this as we keep going, and all of this gives you such interesting little bits and shapes to play with. Like I said, I don't even know if this eye is going to stay, you know, through to the end, who knows. But all of this gives you more dimensionality to play off of and texture, and I think having something to work with is so much more fun and inspiring than starting with a plain white canvas. So when you're playing, let yourself play. Did you enjoy it? Are you enjoying the process? Because that's the point. All right, so I guess let's go this way. All right. Now I want to see it the other way. What do you think? I don't know. It's also kind of like a fish. That's sort of fun. But yeah, so if that was enjoyable to you at all, let me know, because this is just what I do, except I'm explaining it a little bit to someone. So yeah, let me know if you enjoy this, and take care. Take care of yourself. The world is hard. Be nice to yourself. Okay, bye friends.